like 10 years ago, and I said, no more. I'm not that good.
How is your game, by the way? Do you play? Get a chance to play from time to time?
Yeah, I'm a single digit handicap, but if when you play that golf course, every mistake is magnified. It's just gross. And I made plenty of mistakes. So there you go.
All right, I think we're live. So welcome to the Golf Podcast Live. I'm your co-host, Rafael Kalamat, alongside this guy, Michael Bleackley, who's in Vancouver. So that means I'm in Vancouver, which is outstanding. It's amazing. And before we get started today, I want to mention that Mike won the Stanley Cup shootout we had, and he shot even par. He beat me by 3 strokes over the 2-day total, 10 strokes.
Yeah,
I'm the golf teaching professional, and he's the top amateur here out in BC, one of the top amateurs, and he kicked my butt. So
who do you want a lesson from, me or him?
But we have a very special guest today, anchor reporter at the Golf Channel and NBC, Mr. Todd Lewis. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Todd.
Hey guys. Yeah, how you doing?
Doing excellent. Thanks for joining us again.
It was the Players Championship this week. Pretty outstanding. Largest purse ever. Great showing, and Scottie Scheffler taking the win. Unbelievable. Just an unbelievable week. And that's how it's viewed when we're watching it. Give us your take, some of the highlights, because you got a chance to interview most of the top players, and it's an interesting position. And I'm going to joke, you're turning into an analyst. I'm listening to you, and you're like giving numbers, stats, talking about mechanics. So no longer are you like anchor, just reporter. You're a legitimate analyst, I think.
Well, first, my voice is shaky from last week, so I apologize for that. And secondly, that might be a bit of a stretch. I do give out the data, the stats, primarily with the players, and just being around these guys, you get to know their persona. You can take some of this information and form an opinion. Let's look at Scottie Scheffler, for instance. This guy, mechanically, he's just sound through the bag. He's number one on the PGA Tour in strokes gained tee to green, number one in strokes gained off the tee. He leads the tour in greens and regulation. He putts phenomenally when he needs to. He's got some of the greatest hands on the PGA Tour. Jordan Spieth said so yesterday. So if you combine that with, his I guess perspective in the fact that even though all those numbers that I rattled out, he doesn't want that to define him. He's more concerned about being a good person and a great husband. I think that narrow focus on being that guy helps him be the great player, because there are a lot of guys out on the PGA Tour where they grind and I'm here on the PGA Tour, I've got to be great, and they put so much internal pressure on themselves, and then they realize that, well, this is all I'm living for, and that makes it very, very tough to accomplish. Some have done it. Tiger Woods was very obsessive and rose to the occasion, but I think he's a unicorn. It's hard for great players to juggle the selfishness that it takes to be an elite player and also manage what happens off the golf course as well.
He seems so unflappable, much like Dustin Johnson, who we've seen have all kinds of penalties thrown at him during majors and still wins it. But Scheffler has that kind of vibe, not the swagger of Dustin Johnson, but he's calm, cool, collected. He was in trouble a couple of times in the back nine and carefully laid up into position. Made bogey and a heck of a par on 18 after being in trouble, but he's got it all. He's calm, and it's great to watch, right? You can't say anything bad about Scheffler, whether you're a fan or not. His game is on fire. It's unique swing, but at the same time, they're comparing Tiger and Jack. And if you saw Brandel's breakdown last night of that, it was amazing. So he's like I'm calling him Captain America because that the U.S. flag couldn't have been raised quick enough after the trophy was handed out. It was great to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he's relatable.
Yeah.
Look at his golf swing. I mean, it looks like the guy you play floorball with at Muni. I mean, his feet are moving all over the place, and you're like, what's going on there? But at the same time, he's got that aw shucks, kind of smile about him. It takes a lot to rattle him. He actually had anger issues as a junior player. I would throw clubs. Yeah, would throw clubs and get mad. And I'm sure, occasional bad word would come out. But I interestingly asked him last night in our one-on-one interview on Live from the Players. I said, this attitude that you have of being in the moment and not being rattled, is that something that you were born with, or is it something that you learned? And he said it's actually a combination of both. You have to go to his family, incredible family. He was born in New Jersey. Not many people know that, but the family moved from Jersey to Texas because his mom became a partner in a law firm. And the father stayed at home and nobly raised the kids. And I've spent a lot more time with Scottie's father than his mother. But I could tell you that you would be hard pressed to find a kinder, giving man than him. So he learned that from his family. But I think that was just his foundation. After that, Randy Smith, his swing coach, he's kind of like Sky. He's an all shucks kind of Texas guy. Doesn't really get rattled. He's not that much into mechanics. He's kind of like Butch Harmon. He lets you swing. I mean, obviously Scottie doesn't have the most beautifully mechanical swing, but he lets you swing your own swing, and then he works with what you got. So he does a great job there. And then Ted Scott, his caddy, who was on the bag for Bubba Watson, his 2 Masters victories. He's a perfect combination of confidence and humility. And it's just, he's just got all these beautiful pieces around him that keeps him stable and grounded on the golf course. And the best weapon he has is, you hear this all the time, is between his ears, but also in his heart. He doesn't get too emotionally high. And I feel like that's sustainable. That has longevity. So we'll see if that happens.
That's pretty incredible. Scottie's one of those guys a lot of players would like to look up to. And I think the PGA Tour has their American golfer, right? The guy that they want to represent the tour. He's not only relatable, but he's sort of got this kind of swagger that no other player has, this calmness about him. And I think that's incredible. You had some great interviews, and there's some key highlighted stories on certain players that took place during the week. Whether it was South African Bezadenhood or it was Jerry Kelly being the oldest golfer out there making the cut. Which interview kind of stands out for you, and what highlights and things did you take away from that?
Sure, man, that's interesting because I do a lot of them. It kind of depends on the moment. I would guess probably the one I did with Rory McIlroy Tuesday morning at about 10 o'clock, because that happened right after the PGA Tour held its meeting with the players. Many of them were upset about the upcoming schedule in 24 that's going to feature many no-cut designated events. And there are a lot of players in the field that feel like they're going to get shut out for opportunities to play. And, Rory, that was a significant meeting. I was actually surprised that only about 50 players of the 144 in the field showed up. But Rory, who has been the most visible and the most vocal leader, and in the combat between the PGA Tour and Live Golf, I interviewed him right after, and I was expecting to hear from him that there was a lot of friction in the meeting, that there was, this is not a done deal and all that. But he said, it was actually a really positive meeting, and that most of the players that got there and went in that had let's say conservatively, had some doubts, got all the data and all the information, and then there were a lot of them that walked out of that meeting feeling good. Now, I did ask him, I said, now this was a significant question, and it stood out to me. I asked him, is the tour unified right now? That simple question. And he went,
Right.
It took him about 10 seconds to answer that. And so he did say, no, not everybody is together on this. But like I said, there is a pretty good, a decent majority of players that are. So, there's still, look, Scottie winning the Players is significant. But it's been quite interesting in the last couple of weeks with the tour and their direction, and some of the players feeling like they are getting shut out.
Yeah, golf's gone through a big change in the last year, obviously with LIV coming about, and it's forced the PGA Tour to look at some changes. And there are obviously players who don't like seeing these elevated events, but at the same time, there are so many other events. Some events are running in tandem with these elevated events, so there's opportunity for the lower ranked players to earn a higher ranking and get into these fields. So I think in time everything will settle out,
Sure.
and these events they're happening regardless. So but there's plenty of room. There's a pathway to the elevated events. So I think once all the dust settles, these players who are in the lower half of the fields they're going to be there. They're going to get a chance to earn their way in.
Michael, like you were saying, I think a lot of the players didn't go to the player meeting, so they didn't get a nice perspective on what's going on.
Yeah.
They may have not gotten the full picture, so they're under the assumption that they're not being taken care of. This being a player-run association, it's not owned by anybody. It's not a Jay Monahan, tour. It's not owned by anybody. It's owned by the players. So certainly, I think the information needs to get out there in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
I think things are going to work out. However, we'll see how it goes. Only time will tell if this is the best idea. The only thing for legacy and the types of games that they're playing, having no cut is hard to swallow for a lot of players, right? A no cut event, traditionally, if we're going to hold on to legacy and tradition, you want to see the cuts. You want to be able to see a full field. Make the cuts happen quicker. I mean, you could start off with a 156 player field, move down to 100 players, then get into like a 72 and then a 64 bracket, break it up. I'm just throwing out some numbers, but there's a way to do it not to eliminate players like the stories of, Kitayama coming up and winning at the Arnold Palmer, right? Things of that nature. So did you get a chance to talk to Jerry Kelly? We're getting up there. We love to see and cheer him on. Did you get a chance to see him or talk to him at all?
I didn't talk to him on camera. I shouldn't say talk. Jerry, a quick story about Jerry. Jerry and I have I just celebrated a couple of months ago my 15th year at the Golf Channel.
Wow.
And thank you. My second year working, I did a feature story on Jerry Kelly, and this is right up your wheelhouse, guys. But he's a hockey guy. He played hockey in Wisconsin and was pretty tenacious. And I'll never forget, my first year at the Golf Channel, and I'm sitting across from him doing an interview. I don't really know him. We've got this elaborate light set up, two or three cameras, and so on and so on. And I asked him, was he a fighter when he played hockey? And he said, oh yeah. I said, really? It's like, how did you fight? I'm just curious, how'd you fight? And he said, stand up. And stupidly I did. And he grabbed the back of my suit and pulled it over my head and said, this is how I fight. He's holding them with one hand, and
Wow.
He's trying to pretending like he's throwing brushes around. Now he's being playful, of course. He wasn't hitting me, but that's the kind of person he is. So anyway, he walked after play of the second round. He was in the morning on Friday, and he finished 2 over and thought he missed the cut. And he was so hot, frustrated, I should say. He wasn't really hot, frustrated that he came in. He felt like he's one shot off. And I said, great playing. And he kind of punched me. So, I don't know why, it wasn't hard. He was like, and so, but he's a great guy. I mean, what an accomplishment. I mean, that's an elite field to do that.
Well, it's a great story because he does look like he can throw a punch. So I love to hear that.
He's a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
He still looks a scrappy guy. He's was he 5'10", 56 years old. Yeah. He's doing great. He's playing so well. And, a lot of people feel like on the Champions Tour, the guys aren't shooting lights out and they're taking carts around and it's some sort of retirement tour. And these guys are competitive as heck. I mean, if you just look at the names of the players that are out there on tour, it's pretty incredible.
Some of them are hitting it further on the Champions Tour than they were, like thanks to equipment and the focus on fitness as well. Like they're rejuvenated when they go up there. And just wait to see when the big cat lands out there. The purses are going to go up. The galleries are going to be bigger.
They've had the smallest increase of purses over time than any tour, but that's all right. They're still making some.
It's going to boom in a couple of years. So
speaking of guaranteed money, they've got no cut events except for the majors. But Todd, thanks for joining us. I just want to maybe finish this off by getting Todd to tell us maybe one of the key shots or moments at the tournament, something really memorable that sticks out. I know there was some hole-in-ones by, was it Rye had the hole-in-one?
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Here's three. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But
Chad Raby, Aaron Rye, and Alex Smalley.
That's right. That's right. Anything else that stand out for you during the tournament? Could be something funny, could be something interesting.
Were you near Tyrrell Hatton during that crazy back nine? Like, was he swearing or like? I was actually golfing in the morning, so I missed his performance, and I didn't get enough of the highlights that covered it. But he must have been, like when 29 on the back nine at Sawgrass.
Yeah.
Like he's a fiery guy, so like I'd imagine he runs a little hot, even though when he's performing well.
Yeah, I actually saw him in the parking lot. He was putting his clips in the car. He was trying to jam them in there because he was going to drive from Ponte Vedra Beach to his home here in Orlando. And he looked like he kind of had a scowl on his face because you're trying. We packed a trunk. We know it's like Tetris in the back. And he's like, and I said, hey, great play, Terrell. I see you in Austin. He looked. He said, yeah, and big smile. Thank you. When you make over $2 million, finishing second place, you can buy a bigger car.
I think exactly. Or take a jet.
There you go.
Exactly.
Not like Hoagie, who's sitting in coach, right?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. To be honest with you, you asked a point. I mean, Tom Hoagie, you mentioned him. I was going to say, for him to shoot that 62 and to come to the final hole, not knowing that was the course record, and for him to do it after shooting 78 in the first round. That's just, and I mean, not only shot 78, he shot 68 in the second round. And he played Friday morning, and he had already booked an American Airlines flight back to Dallas.
Right.
But because the weather blew in, he said, well, I guess just to make sure I'll leave the next day. So he had that same flight booked for Saturday, and he makes it on the number, and that's just craziness. That's the craziness of golf. But look, I think golf's in a great spot. I think if you look, we were talking about these designated events. I mean, you look at the winners that we have had: John Rahm, Scottie Scheffler, John Rahm, Kurt Kitayama. You mentioned him. People think he came out of nowhere. He was a top 40 player in the world when he won. He was an elite player. And now Scottie Scheffler again. And we've had some big time winners and some big time drama. So far this year.
WGR just switching up, and Min Woo Lee coming out at 24 years old and playing these rounds, using iron off the tee with shaping the ball, 50 yards right to left. I love to see those types of shots. It almost feels like it's been completely gone, the artistry. And that being said, I think Scottie Scheffler is an artist, more of an
no doubt,
more of a shot shaper, not so much on the technique. You can see he's in his footwork. He's sliding around. He grew up playing with Bubba. Yeah, and
anyone winning the Players Championship is a absolute shot maker, because you have to hit it both ways, and you've got to be deadly accurate, and you need a stellar short game to compete out there, because you're going to get in some trouble and you need to be able to rescue yourself, right? And it's an amazing test of golf. I think arguably it's one of the most fun tournaments to watch as a fan, and beautiful design. Whether you like Pete Dye's work or not, usually depends how well you play on his golf courses, but it's a true test of golf. So
yeah,
kudos
I
to
mean,
Scottie.
look at that field. There are no club pros. There are no amateurs.
Right.
These
No.
are all the best
Yeah.
professionals that can play on the PGA Tour, and I'm looking forward to the Masters too in a couple of weeks because I can.
Well, I'm
man,
glad you mentioned
cool.
that.
Yeah.
You want to finish off by just giving us a pick, and it could be
For the
somebody
Masters?
not on this tour.
Look,
It
I
could be
have-
Cam Smith,
yeah.
right?
You could be, and I think I just think that theater that week with the live guys coming in, and I mean that's just going to be. I mean, there's going to be tension. There's no doubt amongst some players, not every player. That Tuesday night champions dinner when you're going to have Sergio Garcia and Patrick Reed in the same room with Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus and
Dustin Johnson.
And Dustin Johnson. So
we haven't seen anything like this in our sport.
And Phil Mickelson too.
That's
Mickelson,
right.
Yeah.
After his absence last year, he was still invited last year, but never showed up. Yeah,
Phil's the barn burner. So it's going to be something else here. I'm looking forward to it. So,
well, believe me, I will be busy that week. That Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is good. That's the crazy thing about my job. The people think that Thursday through Sunday is the toughest part. No. That Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is because you're trying to gather all these stories and so on. Thursday through Sunday, you're reactive pretty much. So
there's also the hustle bustle of travel, and you got to look sharp, and you always do, right? And you got to schedule your day and prep. People don't realize how much preparation it takes to do what you do. And if you don't mind me interrupting, the hardest part about my job that whole week is the fact that you don't have a cell phone. I mean, even I don't have a cell phone. And so when you're out there trying to cover one of the most prestigious tournaments and you don't have a cell phone to call your producers or your camera guys, it's tough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Todd, thanks a lot. You could catch Todd Lewis always on NBC and the Golf Channel. Have a great week and get some rest.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for coming. Appreciate your time. We'll see you soon.
All right. We got Greg DuCharme coming in right now. Mike, that was really interesting.
That was fantastic. Great insight from the players.
Yeah. Tom Hoge, what a great player. I was thinking that, someone like him, he's always under the radar. And we have with us, wow, look at this. We've got Greg DuCharme, analyst and co-host for SiriusXM PGA Radio, A New Breed of Golf and The Wrap, as well as Golf Digest's Best Teachers in America, and CBS affiliate for Course Record and the First Cut podcast. Great. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. I know we've been trying to get this worked out for a while now. I'm glad we finally did.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming. Great to meet you. I'm Mike, and obviously, Raf. We're in Vancouver at the moment. Usually Raf's in Toronto and I'm over here, but he's out here blessing the West Coast with his presence.
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to see it.
We had our annual tournament. We call it the Stanley Cup Shootout. And Mike won with by quite a few strokes. Even though I'm the golf instructor and teaching professional, he took me to school. And but he's a top amateur in the province and in Canada. So
pretty cool.
I like how he pumps my tires.
Yeah. And I take it you guys are hockey guys too.
I played as a kid. Yeah, definitely. It's been a while since I've actually been on the ice myself, but it's kind of runs in our blood here, right? Hockey and
no
golf.
doubt.
We're per capita, we're nuts about golf up here. So
yeah, it's awesome to see. And some great tour players coming up through Canada as well, which has been one of my favorites too, Adam Hadwin. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Adam Hadwin's been he's an alumni of the Vancouver Golf Tour, which is a mini tour out here run by Fraser Mulholland, and they've got the pro side and amateur side. So I can actually say I played in the field with Adam Hadwin, even though
there you go.
As an amateur. But it's great, and Svensson and Taylor, and there's so many. Golf Canada is doing a great thing, by helping mentor these players. And we've got 9 or 10.
I've got 9 or 10 guys on and off on tour.
On Henderson kicking ass on the LPGA.
Absolutely. But it's great to have you on. We want our listeners and viewers to get to know our guests a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background. You're not used to maybe talking about yourself a little bit, but being a guest here, tell us how do you got to get involved with golf media and golf?
I started off as a hockey player, actually, which is why I grew up in upstate New York. So south of the border for you, but, pretty far north compared to everybody else here in the States. And hockey was my first love. I played quite a hefty schedule of that growing up. And then when I was about 15 or 16 years old, I started watching Tiger Woods play the game, which is a common story for people my age, a very common story. And all of a sudden, it flipped golf from something that was, slow and boring, especially compared to hockey, which, by the way, it's still slow and boring compared to hockey, but it made it really exciting. And so I started to really get into the game. I started to play, and I started to get completely hooked. And then I found out that there was a program called the Professional Golf Management Program, and there were 20 colleges in the nation. So now, remember, I started at 16, and a couple years in, I start to really I would say, understand how to play the game a little bit, and it became a real passion of mine. And then I go to Coastal Carolina, which is one of the 20 schools. It's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It's one of the 20 schools that offered the PGM program. And then now I'm in the golf business. And I go through a couple of internships in that program. And that's kind of where you figure out what you want to do within the golf space.
Right.
And I wanted to be an instructor. I thought that coaching golf would be something that would be really fulfilling to me. To get to help people and help people improve their games and learn about the technique. And as somebody who started late, I really tried to figure out the game from kind of an instructional standpoint, a technical standpoint by myself. So I was really diving into that world on my own. And then I came across an opportunity to work with one of the best teachers in the world, in Michael Breed. And I got a job with him as an assistant, just basically scheduling lessons, watching him teach, and helping out with all that kind of stuff and all of his other business. And then things started to evolve. And he obviously had a television show at the time. So there was this interest, I guess, in the media side of things. Although when he got the show on SiriusXM, things really changed. And I would fill in for him when he wasn't there. Back then, the show was only, an hour for 3 days a week. And then it turned into 5 days a week for 2 hours. And he wanted to have somebody on with him to kind of bounce ideas off of and to get into some other conversations other than just simply instruction. And then so I started to do that alongside of him, and things really took off from there. And then all this stuff with CBS happened, and Michael built a studio in his home. And as he was leaving Golf Channel, that was his vision, to kind of do it on his own. And I was there every step of the way, helping him out. And that's how everything with CBS started to happen as well. So it was it's been quite a journey. I've learned a lot, and I'm just so happy and so grateful to, call this game my career as well. Talking about this game for a living is the coolest thing that I could ever dream of.
Amazing. What's obviously we know Michael Breed. We've been huge fans of the Golf Channel, and he's got to be the most energetic personality on the Golf Channel. It's just like, whoa, okay. It's like, so how much coffee does he drink in a given day?
Oh, you may be surprised. Zero.
Yeah, awesome.
Zero cups. And every once in a while he'll get into iced tea, maybe a Coca-Cola if he had a late night or something, but no coffee. And all of that energy is natural and true. And if you ever have a chance to meet him in person, every single day of the week, you'll find the same guy that you saw on TV for all those years, same guy you listen to on the radio every morning. He's himself. He's not afraid to be that way. And that's just the way he is. He can't help it. And it's worked out great for him.
It has. He's very articulate and captivating. I recall from watching him on the Golf Channel, it's like, you absorbed what he was saying. whether it applied to your game or what you may be working on or not. But he's just a great instructor. So
yes,
good for you.
No question.
For connecting with him and going on this journey.
He seems like he always put it in the simplest terms and needed to explain one thing several different ways. And that's a key to a good instructor, to be able to break down not just someone's swing or the physical part of the game or the mental part of the game, but really understanding the person and giving them the exercises and drills they need for themselves. I also went through the professional golf management program, so I do understand what journey you've gone through. You ended up going to the Medalist Golf Club and working there, one of the most popular and famous clubs out in Florida. And but I'd like to talk about Scottie Scheffler and get your opinion on breakdown of his swing, because he seems like a natural artist. We talked to Todd Lewis this morning about this as well before you came on, about how he's a natural player and how he learns to shape the ball right to left, left to right, low, mid to high shots. His statistics are unbelievable in the game right now, and how he's so calm. He's truly, the picture of the PGA Tour, sort of the flagship player, in my opinion. Being an American out of Texas, moving out from New Jersey and having the career he did from high school, college, and now in professional golf with 6 wins. Your thoughts on Scottie?
It is difficult to explain how impressed I am with him in so many different ways. It's a player who, like you said, that natural aspect to me is that he sees things and he hits into the picture, which is one of the reasons why I think he had so much success at a place like Augusta National, because it's such a visual golf course and it paints pictures for you, and he's able to fit the ball in there. And if you talk to Randy Smith, his coach, who they've been working together ever since the age of 7 years old. And that's kind of the player that Scottie was as a 7-year-old. He was curious about trying new shots and trying to learn how to hit a variety of shots around the green and on the range. And the instruction side of things was much more about the picture and what you see and what kind of shots you want to learn, rather than what kind of technique you want to create. So it's a great way to learn the game. It's a great way to teach the game, is to go from the ball backwards, which is something that we always do. What does the ball do? What do you want it to do? And what do you have to do physically to make that happen? And there are some really gifted athletes who make that happen a little bit easier than others. And it doesn't take a lot of technical work and a lot of technique. It takes a little bit more, a little bit more feel and imagination. And that all comes from club face control. But ultimately, I think when you watch what Scottie's done on the PGA Tour now, you're looking at someone who seems to lead the field in strokes gained tee to green every single week. And I think there are a few reasons for that. One, although he can shape the ball both ways, he doesn't overcomplicate things. He doesn't take, easy shots and make them more difficult than they are. He plays the shot that's called for. He plays the shot that is the easiest shot to play. And he doesn't try to do things that are unnecessary, which is a really difficult thing for people to learn. It's like you get this shiny new toy and you want to play with it. And just because you can hit a draw doesn't mean you should to a left hole location, right? If a fade is your go-to shot, you play a fade into the green. And so he has this innate ability, this great sense. And I do think Ted Scott has had a huge role in this, but he has a sense for what it takes to win a golf tournament and the pacing of that over a period of time. This week at the Players was a perfect example, guys. I mean, he was even par through the first 9 holes. He made 9 pars in a row. Yeah. But he didn't change anything. He just stuck to doing what he does. And then all of a sudden he gets to 17 under par. Yeah. And you think about last year after this run where he wins 4 of 6 events, and all of a sudden he stops winning after the Masters. And he stopped winning for a very clear reason. He started missing the putts that he was making before. and all of a sudden his putting numbers start to drop. But they don't go to claw grip or, a new style putter, or they don't make any dramatic changes. He just keeps at it, and all of a sudden, it's not to say that he ignores it, and they look for things. Like he had a new putter in play at the Players this week, but it's the same kind of model. It's just a little flatter in its lie angle.
Yeah,
It's these
point,
minor
Greg,
tweaks.
I saw him over at the Canadian Open working on the putting surface, and he was struggling with his putting with the Poa Annua greens up in Canada over at St. George's Golf Club. And he couldn't figure it out. I could see him scratching his head there for an hour and a half trying to get his putter going, doing a circular drill, placing tees 10 feet away from the hole and working his way all the way around the hole, trying to make 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, putting is one part of our games that can just go away at any given time. And even though your technique's the same and there's no guarantee you could strike it, roll it perfectly, there's no guarantee it's going in. So there's some variables, the grass, the slopes, speeds. So it's just something that we have to be patient with as golfers. And I think Scottie, he grinded it out, the patience prevailed. And look at the past year he's had. It's unbelievable.
Another thing about that, you mentioned how variable putting can be. And there are countless ways to improve your putting and, roll it better and read the greens better. And there are endless ways to improve, and you should try to do that as much as you can. But putting by its nature is a very volatile statistical area, and it comes and goes, and great putters don't make every putt that they hit. And sometimes you hit great putts that don't go in for a variety of reasons. Whereas when you have a lot of club head speed, when you have the ability to hit the ball really high, when you have the ability to hit really flush iron shots, at the highest level, these things, they don't come and go as quickly. They are much more reliable. Distance is the number one thing. I mean, you don't see guys hit the ball 20 yards shorter one day when they wake up and get to the range. That doesn't happen. So, club head speed, distance, these things are kind of locked in skills, locked in advantages that players take to the golf course every week. And Scottie has those advantages. He hits it high, he hits it far, and he always has the ability to contend in these events based on that skill set.
Yeah.
And when he gets the putter rolling, then he's near impossible to beat. He didn't even get the putter rolling at the Players. I mean, he was losing strokes putting for 71 holes and winning by 5. So it's something else.
Yeah. Well, his discipline was impressive too. As I was saying to Todd, like he was in trouble twice in the back 9. I think on 14, he was on a weird side hill lie. That's a shot you don't have a place to practice very often. And he deliberated about it for a minute and carefully laid up. 18, he was forced to lay up, kind of like pulled a David Toms par, if you will, just got into position and made a 20-something footer for an incredible par. I mean, he could have 4 or 5 putted and still won, but just to slam that par in for the gallery and for the viewers, right? Like he's kind of he's America's new golf god, if you will,
absolutely.
Right? He's like,
I'll tell you, Mike, I think him as a player, I don't think players realize how young he is, realize the depth and knowledge he has in the golf game, because you would think the guy's 40 years old, right? The way he plays, the way he thinks his way around the golf course. And so if you look at a player like Min-Woo Lee, who kind of folded like a lawn chair on Sunday, he had a hard time, but he has a beautiful game. It's going to take some experience. He's only 24 years old. It's the biggest event he's been at with those kind of crowds. Well, I loved the way he was shaping the ball. He's another one who's an artist. He was able to, hit irons off the tee and not be afraid to go being paired with Scheffler and just whip it around on 18 with an iron.
Well, the breakdown of his swing with Paul McGinley and Brandel Chambly spent 3 or 4 minutes going down, breaking down his swing, and everything's perfect. Like, it is really something we should be looking to model off of.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was thinking about it on Sunday morning, his footwork, when I got to, you know, play my round as warming up in the range, and just thinking about his right toe and how he was generating that to turn his,
and he's kind of
to get his turn, like, you know,
kind of spins it away. And then Scheffler's crazy footwork.
Yeah.
You know, he's got some Fred Astaire moves there. But your thoughts on Scottie, but not only Scottie, but Minwoo Lee and other players in the tournament.
Minwoo Lee, I think, was impressive in a lot of ways. One, he has a lot of confidence. So there's a lot of swagger about him on the golf course. And I think that's going to be fun to watch as he progresses his career towards the PGA Tour, because he's not there yet. He was very close to getting special temporary membership on the PGA Tour, which means you can play, you can get as many sponsor exemptions in that year as you're given, and there's no limit as there typically is. So that would have been really cool to see. But another pathway is opened up for him through the DP World Tour. If you finish inside the top 10 on that tour, you get your PGA Tour card. I think it's quite likely. Well, very possible. It's there's a long way to go, but he's inside that number right now. And I think what we saw at the Players Championship, he's going to have the ability to hang in there. Now Minwoo Lee has a great golf swing, as you said. And we've seen him win a big tournament. He won the Scottish Open in 2021, beat Matt Fitzpatrick and Thomas Dietrich in a playoff. So he has plenty of game and he knows it. But at this level, it very rarely comes down to the difference in golf swings. It may come down to a difference in clubhead speed. That may make a difference. A couple of putts here or there, some short game shots here or there. But my analysis on Minwoo, if I'm looking at something that he really needs to improve, it's the driver. And it's impressive to hit irons all over the place off the tee, but it's not the most effective way to do it. Even if you could hit a 300-yard 3-iron, you're leaving a lot on the table when driver's a weakness. And you look at the top 3 players in the game right now, Scottie Scheffler, Jon Rahm, and Rory McIlroy, and they may be the 3 best drivers of the golf ball in the game. You look at Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay, and they're great drivers of the golf ball. There are very few top-level players who struggle off the tee. Now, maybe the accuracy goes astray a little bit here and there, but typically those guys are they're keeping it between the trees for the most part. And that is just a huge advantage over time.
Yeah.
So, I look at these things I try to look at them in a wide lens and in a narrow lens. And in the narrow lens, the moment right here, the hole right in front of you, it's quite easy to see that putting makes the biggest difference on your score. This is the scoring club. You can save par with holding a great putt like Scottie did on 18. And if you miss that, you make a bogey. So there's the finality to putting. But ultimately, over time, when you start to look at the data and look at the numbers, the players who have the best careers on the PGA Tour, the players who are the most consistent over time, ultimately the guys who make the most money on the PGA Tour tend to be the great drivers of the golf ball. So if you're Minwoo Lee, you have this great asset in clubhead speed, but it's hampered dramatically by the inability to hit the driver confidently. So if he can straighten that out and make turn the driver from a weakness into a strength, he's going to be, he'll be around on the PGA Tour for a long while. Yeah.
And he's young enough that I'm pretty confident he will. And I mean, it's like, I truly believe scoring starts on the tee. So if you can't put your ball in position on each hole to give yourself a chance to go at a par 5 and to have solid approach for a birdie attempts and whatnot, you're going to get lapped by the field.
You're absolutely right. And I mean, Scottie Scheffler is a great example of that. The way he played, not just the players, but week in and week out. And because he puts himself in so many good positions off the tee, and he's such a good iron player, he doesn't really have to putt well to just kind of end up at 15 under par. Where when you watch Jordan Spieth play, you feel like Jordan Spieth has to make 5 25-footers to shoot 6 under par. And I know that's not always the case, but it looks a lot easier for the Rahms and the Schefflers and the McIlroys to accumulate a lot of birdies over the course of 4 days than it does some of the guys who are a little more sporadic or a little shorter off the tee. Maybe get some of the guys that hit the ball a little lower. Those kind of things becomes a lot more difficult to accumulate those birdies.
Greg, I'd love to switch gears just a little bit and talk about designated events, purses, and of course, no cut fields. Like I'm a traditionalist. I'm 48 going on 49. So is Mike, I suppose, right?
49.
We've been following this game for a long time. I don't know how I feel about it. And it just goes to show that only 40 to 50 players showed up at the player meeting. I don't know what that actually shows. I think if the players went to the meeting, they'd get a better idea of how this breaks down and how they could slowly build up and get into these events, the lesser known players or the players, outside of the top, 75, because I think they're concerned about not being able to play these designated events, but there is a way, there is a route to go out and play that way. But I'm a traditionalist. I'd like to see 156, 144 player field. People, then you get the great stories that come out of that. You get the Coles, right? You get the amazing players that are out there, because any given day, one of these guys could string together 4 rounds and change their life, change their career.
It could be the Monday qualifier, walks in and it lives all of our dreams. Just roll right into
Corey Connors won doing that a couple of years ago.
Right. Yeah. Stephen Ames won the Players Championship. He just came out of nowhere.
Fred Funk took it, right? So it's like you never know, and that's the beauty about our game is you get on a heater, you just never know who could win. I called Tyrrell Hatton last week to my dark horse, and he almost did it. It's like
that's a
pure
great
stab
call
in the dark because he played well the week before at the API. And what a run. Like that back 9 was insane.
Yeah.
It was absolutely insane. So designated events has been a really big topic. I had a feeling you guys were going to ask me about this. So I have a couple thoughts. One, with the cut, I prefer events that have cuts. Now, I don't think having 8 events with no cuts is a significant change to the model. We've had events I think it was in 2010, there were 8 events on the PGA Tour with limited fields and no cuts. But that being said, my preference is to have a cut. I think it creates a more compelling event. I think Friday's drama increases dramatically. And if you are in the fantasy golf world, if you're in any pools playing in a one and done pool or something, as a fan, that Thursday, Friday becomes a lot more valuable. And I can't tell you how many people I have reaching out to me on Thursday and Friday talking about the guys that they picked, some of the dark horses that they picked and what they're doing. So, that's one of the reasons why the cut is a really compelling aspect to the PGA Tour. But this is an unprecedented time in the game of golf. The PGA Tour has never had a competitor within the game of golf. The competitors for the PGA Tour over the years have been the NFL, the NHL, baseball, the MLB. It's other professional sports, and they're competing for television viewers. They're competing for sponsors. They're competing for all these different things that make the business run. And now you have another player in professional golf who's competing with you and taking your players and offering them large amounts of money to do it. And that large amount of money seems to be in near endless supply, because the PIF from Saudi Arabia is extremely wealthy. It's one of the wealthiest nations in the world funding a tour. I mean, imagine if, I'm not sure what it's called in Canada, but in the US, it's called the Fed, where they run all the money. Imagine if the Fed started a tour. They can
call it
the
Royal Canadian Mint.
The Royal Canadian Mint, right? I mean, you can print it. How do you keep up with that? So having that as your premise, we have to figure out a solution. We have to figure out a way to sweeten the pot for the players on the PGA Tour. And more specifically, the players that are going to be offered these large amounts of money. These are the players that you really need to keep and you need to focus on. But at the same time, in order for the PGA Tour, which is a business that pays their players based on the business that they generate, like most businesses in the world, it doesn't come from being a nation. It comes from how successful you are as a business. So they have to figure out a way to generate more income as a tour. And the players come together and say, when we play together, we can offer our sponsors more. We can offer the television companies more. And if we limit those fields, we're going to get and create some avenues in. We're not only going to improve the product in the designated events, but the non-designated events are going to get a boost as well. And they're going to get a boost because you have this entire second half of the tour that isn't busy playing the designated schedule. They're playing a kind of a different schedule and competing to get into the big events. Yeah. So now you look at what we had at the Honda Classic with Chris Kirk and Eric Cole, who you already mentioned, Rafael. These guys are playing for a lot. And when you have meaning in the game of golf, it adds excitement, particularly on Sunday. Because all of a sudden, this isn't just, we don't really care that Scottie Scheffler just won for over $4 million. We care that he won the Players Championship. The amount of money that he won is, a secondary thing, maybe tertiary. It's not the driving force. But on the PGA Tour, the driving force is the meaning. The driving force is what it means. Scottie Scheffler now is eligible for the Hall of Fame with the Players and a Masters. Right? Yeah, these are big legacy items. Yeah. And so I do believe, although I like cuts, I understand where this model comes from. And I think, quite frankly, it's a very clever solution and a phenomenal way to create a competitive environment, which is
a good
sticking to their principle.
I like how you broke that down. And I believe that, with these elevated events, cut or not, like I agree, I prefer a cut, but it makes sense. But the players in the lower half of the rankings have a whole bunch of events without the top players in them where they can earn their way into these elevated events. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to translate well and will be well received, and time will tell. So,
it's going to be very interesting to see what the FedEx Cup point breakdown is, what that distribution is. Right now, a designated event, the Players is 600 points, FedEx Cup points to the winner. The Honda Classic is 500, but the Arnold Palmer Invitational is 550 to the winner. So the difference between Kurt Kitayama winning the Arnold Palmer and Chris Kirk winning the Honda Classic, from a keep your card perspective, is quite minor. In the bank account, it's a major difference, but I don't think anybody's complaining about that. But ultimately, if you're not in that top 70 and you're playing the non-designated events, what's that point distribution going to be? And that'll be a big factor, in my opinion, of how much opportunity and how much turnover we get year over year. Then that's yet to be seen. I hope they keep it close, because I think it will provide a great opportunity for the guys playing, to your point, Mike, which is a great one. They're playing against not Scottie Scheffler and not John Rahm, and that's a big advantage.
So, I want to add a little more to that, because I'd love to hear your insight on this. Now that we've lost several dozen players to live, right, in all different age groups, but there are some key players there who would probably be in contention on a week-to-week basis who are not on tour. So over the last year, do you think there's an asterisk against all the tour winners, right? Because there's less players out there. A lot of the top 50 have moved on. What do you think about that?
I think that it's a wonderful question, and it's certainly something to be considered. But I would not put an asterisk next to it for a couple reasons. One, it was these players chose to go a different direction, and they made their own decision. Now you are looking at a guy like Cam Smith, a guy like Joaquin Niemann, who they won some pretty big events last year.
Yeah.
And they are no doubt some of the better players in the world of golf. But this is like when Padraig Harrington won 2 major championships in 2008. Is there an asterisk next to that? Is there an asterisk because Tiger was injured? And that was a big topic of conversation. Well, Padraig Harrington just got into the World Golf Hall of Fame. So I don't think that they put an asterisk next to that from that perspective. Ultimately, you're playing against the field that's in front of you. You're trying to beat the guys that are in your group. You're trying to beat the guys that are in the groups ahead of you and behind you. And Scottie Scheffler and Jon Rahm have beaten everybody. And as for the live guys, this year at least, we're going to see them in major championships, and we'll see how the game stacks up. When April comes around, you'll see Cam Smith and Dustin Johnson and all those guys playing in the Masters.
Yeah, and we're excited for that. It's going to be
we're going to get a real look
drama. It's going to be fun.
That's right. That's right.
That's where we want to circle around to and kind of finish up the cast by asking you about your picks for Augusta. I know we got Valspar coming up in the match play over in Austin, Texas. However, Augusta's around the corner, and we obviously, nobody could actually wait for the first major of the year. It's going to be the best Netflix kind of drama that we could ever expect. We got all the live guys coming on, the awkwardness of everybody from Patrick Reed to Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Cam Smith. Their games, I feel, are going to be so elevated at that point that everybody's going to, take their game to another level. Your thoughts and picks for Augusta before we wrap up, and if you could tell us where we could hear and listen to you and watch you as well.
Sure. All right. So a couple things on the Masters. One, Rory McIlroy will be the story heading into it. No matter what he does from here on out, all the eyes are going to be on Rory McIlroy as we remember what he did last year. And he's looking to complete the career Grand Slam, of course. So no player who has the career Grand Slam, there are only 5 of them, nobody has ever done it after their 3rd attempt, which I find to be fascinating. It's been quite a few now for Rory McIlroy. And I just wonder if this is one of those things that is, it's just, is there a ghost there? So I have a lot of questions about Rory. His putting has been on the down. And so I don't know what we're going to get from him at Augusta National. I'm sure he'll be a part of the conversation, but there's a lot of guys who I think are really looking to get the win. It's hard to look past Scottie Scheffler. It's hard to look past Jon Rahm, but we've been talking about those guys at such length for the past, 6 months at least. And really, with those 3 guys, you're probably going on a year now where we've had a lot of conversation about them. I would say in the last 6 months or so, they've separated themselves as the 3 best players in golf. So aside from them, another player I'm really interested in is Jason Day, who he's kind of a long shot guy for me. Yeah. And there are a couple reasons. One, he has a really nice record at the Masters. He was tied 5th in 2019. He was 3rd in 2013, came in tied 2nd back in 2011. There are a couple of other top 10s and top 25s in there as well. But the thing I really like about Jason Day is how he has improved his health, one, and also his iron play has gotten a whole lot better. This was the area of weakness for him for his entire career, quite frankly. And he has figured out how to solve that riddle. His entire career after being a world #1 player. It's really what I mean. In 15, 16, and 17, he was a really good iron player. But when we get to
his name out here in Canada, winning the Canadian Open in 2015.
Right. That's exactly right. And back then he was gaining, he gained like a half a shot at an average for the entire year. Well, this year he's actually gaining more than that. 2023 has been his best iron play season on the PGA Tour ever. And the putting is starting to make a resurgence back to, maybe not the level that it was in 2015. In 2000, even 16 and 17, he was a phenomenal putter as well. But it's starting to make a resurgence. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great golf course for him. I think he is. I think Jason Day is back and ready to compete in a major. I think he does it in April if he gets in. He's kind of a borderline guy for getting in.
Right.
So that'll be a fun thing to watch. And then
it's a good pick.
Yeah, for a long shot right now, I think he's a guy I have a gut feeling about. Let me give you one other name, a guy who is really worth paying attention to, who has yet to prove himself in a major championship, but it's Max Homa. Yeah. Max Homa has become, I think he's a top 5 player in the game now. Probably on the PGA Tour, probably the 4th best player in the world. Mm-hmm. So he has improved every area of his game consistently, repeatedly over the years. And all of a sudden, he's developed into this guy that's kind of the cream of the crop. There's that saying in 4-round tournaments, the cream rises to the top. Yeah. And at the end, it's always the best players that are there. But that's exactly what he did this week at the Players. He shot 72-72 in the first 2 rounds. And next thing you know, he's making a charge on Sunday and finishes in the top 10, even with a double bogey at 17. So I think Max Homa has just proved himself as one of the game's elite and is ready to compete for the first time in a major, really contend in a major. And
that's a great pick. I like that pick so much, the way he's been trending and how he's playing and how his confidence has changed and how he's become an all-around player. With his iron play and his chipping and pitching around the greens, his sand play percentages.
I agree.
Really, really smart player.
He's a great personality too. If you follow him on Twitter, he's actually pretty hilarious. How he engages with his fans or trolls, whichever they might be. But I'm a big fan of Max, and him putting on a green jacket. What a story.
It would be a great story.
All the injuries, vertigo, and remember tournaments he's had to lie down, and poor guy, that's
Chambers Bay in 2015 in the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I was down there, and here he is.
It's nice to see players like him, players like Ricky Fowler having a resurgence, working with Butch Harmon. I like seeing the players that've been around for a while, been around the block. Former players winner too with Ricky Fowler. And
Fowler's a good dark horse as well. Imagine him pulling on a green jacket like that. That's another great story.
He's starting to play a lot better.
He sure has. And he took a little heat for jumping on the sponsorship bandwagon and filming commercials, and he got married, and so
he's busy in life, right? We get
life has its ups and downs. So he's ready, and he's showing a lot of progress.
Hey, Greg, one thing. Go ahead.
Oh, you mentioned earlier that I worked down at Medalist. Well, Ricky was a member down at Medalist when I was there, and I just got to say he was doing all the commercials and all that stuff then, and it didn't get in the way of his work. His work ethic is premier, and he's not filming commercials and skipping practice. I'll tell you that he's getting his practice in whenever he needs to. So.
Hey, Greg, one thing we usually love to do from our guests, and it's the first time we've had you on the pod, is a funny or embarrassing story. Either something that's happened to you on a golf course, or you've something you've covered, or is there anything that comes to mind?
Oh man!
And then we'll let you go.
I have to think about that one a little bit. A funny or embarrassing moment on the golf course.
Well, in the meantime, while you think about that, Greg DuCharme is with us. He's the analyst and co-host on SiriusXM PGA Radio, A New Breed of Golf, and The Wrap. He's also on the CBS affiliate, Course Record, and the First Cut podcast, which I really enjoy with Rick Gaiman and Mark Immelman. You guys do a great job with Kyle Porter. It's fun to watch, get all those perspectives and all those one and dones and statistics. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for watching. You nailed it right on the head. SiriusXM, as you said, that's 8 to 10 in the morning. The Wrap will be after on Thursdays and Fridays. That's typically what I do periodically, a couple times a month. And that'll be after the live coverage on PGA Tour. And the First Cut podcast is that's a 6-day-a-week podcast. I usually do Sundays and probably a post-round one and maybe Monday or Tuesday as well. So I mix into all of those. And Course Record on CBS this year is starting up here pretty soon. The week after Masters we get going. That'll be on CBS leading into PGA Tour coverage for a couple of Saturdays or Sundays throughout the year.
Well, Mike and I are going to stay on. Well, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get a chance to maybe meet each other on the golf course or play together.
That'd be great.
If time allows, but thanks for coming on and have yourself a great week.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Great meeting you two guys. Great to chat with you.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be sharing this on about 17 different platforms, audio and video. Right. It was fantastic.
All right. Have a great night. Thanks guys.
Well, he was great. You know, we had a great cast today, Mike.
Two great guests.
Yep.
Lots of insight from these two guys, different perspectives. Todd is kind of Golf Channel's one of his top anchors right now. So no, that was awesome.
You know, and I've been trying to get Greg on the show for over a year, so it's nice to finally touch base.
Absolutely.
And so make sure you follow him. He's over at the real GFD on Twitter, and Todd Lewis is at Todd Lewis GC for the Golf Channel. And, we talked about a lot of players, but we missed out on so many players. I just want to wrap this up by throwing out some names. And maybe the first thing that comes to your head, Mike, I'm looking at Scottie Scheffler, Tyrrell Hatton, Victor Hovland right there on T3 with Tom Hodge, who played ridiculous golf. Hideki Matsuyama, who had an incredible run, shooting a 68. I don't know what to say. Outside of that double bogey on 14, he was a birdie machine, right?
Yeah.
He could have shot a 66 that day.
Right. Justin Rose made an interesting I mentioned the live players moving on and not being on tour anymore, but this leaderboard looks pretty damn good considering there's a couple dozen guys who are not in these fields anymore.
Well, I love the fact that you bring up Justin Rose, because Justin Rose is one of those players that fits into that category with, Ricky Fowler and Jason Day, the guys who actually played really well, won a lot on tour, and really made a name for themselves. And I guess we should give a shout out to our Canadian boys, Adam Svensson and Adam Hadwin, for shooting 7 under, right? Svensson, who was leading the tournament, right, at one point. So, a big shout out to those guys for playing well. Sometimes we forget about Sung Jae Im, who's like the most consistent crazy player ever. So want to bring him up. But I really enjoyed this year's Masters, especially when they do these profile stories. Rich Lerner.
This year's Masters?
Did I say Masters?
Masters, you mean players?
Oh, I meant players. Yeah. So this year's, I'm thinking ahead. I'm at the players already. We're not even there yet. But thinking about, the analysis someone like Rich Lerner does on a player like Bezuidenhout, Christian Bezuidenhout, who's out from South Africa, and how he has a problem with his stutter, right?
Well, he drank rat poison, because this is the player, right? I heard the tale of that story. He accidentally drank rat poison as a child, and it messed him up, and he was bullied about it and the whole thing. So to see an incident like that and him overcome it, and he's fairly young. We're going to see a lot more of him on tour.
Yeah, absolutely. And just taking the interviews and being able to overcome this adversity throughout your teenage years and making it all the way to the top and playing the Players Championship. Kind of disappointed with Xander Schauffele, was a big pick for me, and Jordan Spieth. Jordan, you never know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates, like they say, right? Jordan could hit 3 fantastic shots, or just hit 3 shots that are just absolutely horrible slices. Remember, he hit the spectator.
Well, he made the cut. He makes the cut. He hits the spectator in the knee.
Yeah,
bounces back in the fairway, and he chips in for eagle on the same hole, makes the cut. So he gave the guy tickets to the weekend in a glove.
Yep.
You know,
That's
about
nice.
10% of your check. How much did Jordan make this week?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of money being floated around on tour. It's nice to see, the game changing in many different ways. Looks like Netflix is being picking up the PGA Tour and
they're
the full
doing a
swing for a
season
second
2.
season 2.
Please make it more interesting.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
it was
that right now.
It's a little stale. It
A
wasn't.
couple good episodes, but
Yeah.
it was a bit boring. I still got to watch the last one. I kind of, was so excited to watch that. And after the second episode, sorry, it's a sleeper.
Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to watch it. It's nice to get that insight on certain
Sure.
players and see what's going on. But hey, Mike, you've got a cup over there. We've got some merch. Before we sign off, we've got
There
new
we
caps,
go. Look at that.
new hats. We're going to have a link on our website on www.thegolfpodcast.live where you can get some merch. We've got a whole bunch of stuff going to be available very soon. You're going to be able to support us through Patreon as well, whether it's $1 a month or if you want to go into a marketing partnership with us, we're available.
It's there. It's there. Yeah, we're prototyping some of our caps, so stay tuned. We'll definitely
Let us
be
know what you
sending
think.
some out to our guests and giving some away to our audience. And so stay tuned for that. And in the short term, this is live on YouTube at the moment. We'll share the link on social media shortly, and tomorrow it will be available on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, special thanks to Todd Lewis again, Greg DuCharme, from Michael Bleackley. I'm Rafael Kalamat, and you've been listening to the Golf Podcast Live. Make sure you share and you like. It goes a long
Subscribe,
way, right?
Anything. Even if you don't listen to it, at least share and like the damn thing.
It would really mean a lot to us. So we're going on, this is episode
65.
65, and we're going to have another 65 coming your way. We've got some online golfing that we're going to actually clip and send out really soon. So looking forward to
We
that.
filmed our match in Stanley Park, so we're gonna chop that up into some kind of fun 5-minute recap. So stay tuned.